Well, first things first, America is in the midst of a full-blown constitutional crisis. And the people entrusted to help safeguard our democracy are too busy fighting over the role of government to recognize that our republic may have just been hijacked in broad daylight. Now, this week we discovered a horrifying truth, that the rationale used to justify the largest strategic blunder in the modern history of the American military was predicated on a lie. From the day Kabul fell, President Biden has insisted to the world that his decision to remove the entirety of America's military presence from Afghanistan was done with the full support of his senior military advisors. There's just one problem. Those same senior military advisors just testified under oath and under penalty of perjury that they made no such recommendation. Specifically, to the contrary, General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said it was his recommendation that America leave no less than 2,500 troops on the ground to help prevent the very resurgence of the Taliban we just witnessed live in living color. It was a staggering admission because it forces us to confront an inconvenient reality. Either the President of the United States lied to the world, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff just lied to Congress, or, perhaps more terrifying, both of them are actually telling the truth. And then we have no idea who is actually running this nation. Now, this was not a simple miscommunication, folks. 20 years and $2 trillion of sacrifice was squandered. 13 American heroes were killed. Countless Americans remain stranded in Afghanistan right now as we speak. And the only meaningful response we have made to atone for this catastrophic collapse is a retaliatory drone strike that, upon further evaluation, killed 7 innocent children, not the terrorists. That's the ledger of failure here we're dealing with. And for reasons passing understanding, we can't get a straight answer from our government on who made the call to leave, or why the purported recommendations of the leading military minds of this nation were by and large completely ignored. And so 9 months into a presidency that promised to fortify the trust and confidence of our allies, the saga of lies and misinformation on display has instead compromised America's credibility as a trusted actor on the world stage in ways we cannot even begin to comprehend. And no, that is not a Joe Pinion partisan opinion. It's just the truth. Don't take my word for it. Why don't you ask the British Parliament why they held Joe Biden in contempt for America's disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal? Or better yet, if that's not good enough for you, then simply listen to the sworn testimony of President Biden's very own chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley himself.
I think that our credibility with allies and partners around the world and with adversaries is being intensely reviewed by them to see which way this is going to go. And I think that damage is one word that could be used.
So that's where we are, folks. And so we need answers. We need to know if our senior military leaders are lying to us, or if the leader of the free world willfully misled the entire world about a conflict so central to the stability of the world. America and our allies dedicated 20 years and countless lives to the effort. And if neither of those things are true, if President Biden truly believed that the generals supported his withdrawal, when in reality they did not, then the people who are supposed to serve as a check on American power need to find out who has manipulated the power of the executive branch. If there is an unseen, unelected cabal so deeply embedded in this administration that it is capable of keeping the president and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs on completely separate pages on matters of such grave importance, well, then not only has the presidency of Joe Biden been compromised, but the integrity of our entire government has been compromised as well. And there's only one person who can answer this question swiftly and succinctly, and his name is Joseph Robinette Biden. And so this is really the last time that Joe Biden has the opportunity to show up and be the president he claimed he wanted to be. If he is really the unity president, if he really wants to be the America is back president, then he needs to put down the political spin, pick up a Bible, and testify before Congress. Or better yet, submit a sworn statement to Congress detailing exactly what happened here. You see, it really doesn't matter how we get the truth, but the truth needs to be told because America's credibility is on the line. And if this president and the administration continue to refuse to go on the record, well, as the saying goes, a half-truth is a whole lie. And the lies of the Biden presidency may prove to be the final blow to the integrity of a nation they were promised to restore.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.